looking for Emily Henry, and look what I just found. Monday afternoon. I just wanted to do a reading update as well as show you a little book haul, but before I do that, how cute is this top? I bought it on sale at Forever 21 a few weeks ago. I was really happy about the purchase, and I wore it for the first time this morning, and when I put it on, I immediately remembered that I have these earrings. As you can see, they have like little pearls as well as black bows which match the top. When I bought the top, I wasn't even thinking about these earrings. It was only this morning that I realized, oh my god, I have earrings that match this. So I was pretty excited, so I just want to show you that. But anyway, as you saw yesterday, I was reading Shield of Sparrow. I'm only about a quarter through, about 120 pages. If you watched my last reading vlog, I started reading, it was a reading vlog for Shield of Sparrow, Silver Elite, as well as Beach Reads. I wanted to read these two books because they are huge book talk sensations right now. Like, everyone is going nuts over these, and I want to see if they live up to the hype. With Beach Reads, it's my first Emily Henry book, and I started reading it before the vlog, so it was just like a continuation. So with this book, Shield of Sparrow, I finished the last vlog saying that I was only a quarter through it, and I haven't made a ton of progress since then. I've been a little bit busy, so I'm getting back into reading it again. So far, so good. She has left, the main character Odessa has left her kingdom, and she has now entered another kingdom. So I'm kind of at that part where she's just gone into the new kingdom, and things I think are going to start to really heat up. There has been some action at the beginning, not a ton of action, but enough for it to be interesting. But I think things are really going to start picking up pace now that she's at the new destination, the kingdom that I suspect she will be at probably for most of the book, I imagine. So yeah, I don't want to say too much and give any spoilers, but that's basically where I'm at with this. So I'm very interested to see where this is going to go. Now, in terms of Silver Elite, I did finish this last Friday. When I was doing the reading vlog, I actually dedicated most of my time to reading Silver Elite, even though I actually started Shield of Sparrow a day before. The reason why, as I said, there's been some action in Shield of Sparrow, but not a ton. While with Silver Elite, the action starts basically from the second chapter, or even you could argue maybe the end of chapter 1, and it kind of continued throughout the entire book. So I just want to give a little, final thoughts. I talk a lot in my last vlog, so if you're interested in seeing most of my thoughts on this, I got to the 60% mark in the final vlog, but just to give a tiny updates. So what I said last time was the reason why I was reading more of this is because, again, it's faster paced, and I was actually more excited about reading Silver Elite versus Shield of Sparrow because I have read a fair amount of romantasy books. I wanted to I've been kind of changing pace a little bit, reading Beach Reads and some contemporary books and some romances. So I'm kind of moving a little bit away from romantasy. I guess this is kind of bringing me back. But for this one, I was excited because it's a dystopian romance, I think. Some people were, I think, assumed that this was a romantasy, though. From another video I saw, I think the author is kind of marketing this as both a dystopian romance as well as romantasy, maybe. I don't know. I don't think this is romantasy, though. I would just consider this dystopian with romance in it. And a few months ago, I read the first book in the Shatter Me series. I really loved it. That's also a dystopian novel, and it kind of got me feeling nostalgic for the Hunger Games and that time period, the 2010s when dystopians were really big. And so I was really excited then about starting this. And what I can say is, if I were to rate this out from 5 stars, I would say I'd probably give this maybe a 3.5, 3.6. So like it was good. It wasn't great. It wasn't like the best thing in the world, but it was a pretty good book. I did enjoy it. In terms of, like, as I mentioned, there's a lot of action. I would say that one thing that Dani Francis does well is she's good at like ending a chapter with something that makes you want to kind of like keep reading. So that's one of the things I noticed very early on in the book, and I think that's also another reason why I dedicated most of the vlog to reading Silver Elite versus Shield of Sparrow. Again, that's like no disrespect to Shield of Sparrow or saying that like it's bad. It's just that this one did grip me a little bit more. It was an easy read as well. It wasn't like too difficult. Everything was pretty straightforward. I wanted to keep reading. There were times where it was pretty suspenseful. Now, there were things I didn't like about the book as well. Some people have criticized it because they said they don't feel that it's dystopian. I think because there isn't like a ton of world building in terms of like we don't see most of like what's going on in the country. We get like bits and pieces, but that didn't bother me. I remember people had the same type of issue with the first Imperium book, Fourth Wing. People are saying like, oh, we didn't get any world building, but to be honest, I felt like that was okay for me, just like with this book, because in Fourth Wing, the whole point is that Violet is entering the Writer's Quadrant, and she has very little preparation for being a dragon rider. So it's all about her like figuring out what the quadrant is like, the rules, how she's going to survive in this really dangerous environment, and how she's going to make it as a writer. So like the world for her, at least in that first book, was the Writer's Quadrant. So to me it made sense that it focused mostly on the Writer's Quadrant and not necessarily everything that was happening outside of the college. And I felt the same way with Silver Elite. Could she have provided a little bit more about what was going on? I felt like she did put enough though for you to know what this world is like. And the thing is, like, the main character, she gets arrested and then she's forced to join the Silver Block. Well, she's not actually joined Silver Block yet, but she has to like kind of be almost like a military college again, where she has to like compete to join Silver Block, which is like this elite unit. And then within that unit there is the Silver Elite, which is kind of like the elite unit within the elite unit. So she has to try and like get into this unit. So, and this isn't something that she has any experience with. She's never been in the military before, so like, and she's not allowed to leave because again she's under suspicion because she lives in a world where there's primes and mods. Primes are normal people like you and me, and mods are people that have powers. This happened because I think it's like World War III led to like radiation and like some people getting powers. She is a mod. She has these metro abilities, and like there's been like back and forth wars and conflicts between the mods and the primes, and every time one of them takes control, they basically try to do really bad things to the others. So like they oppress them, they kill them, they do all this type of stuff. Right now we're at the point where the primes have taken control away from the mods, and they are basically hunting down all of the mods. So she has to pretend that she is a prime. That's not a spoiler. Like, you see that in the little blurb, and it's mentioned in the first chapter as well. So she's basically in this Silver Block, which there's a few things that they are responsible for, but one of the things they're responsible for is hunting down mods. And the reason why I guess it's called Silver Block and Silver Elite is I'm assuming it's because when the mods use their powers, there's like silver streaks that go down their arm, because I think it's supposed to be that you could see the power going through their veins or something like that. So she has to be extremely careful. So to me it made sense that if she's not really allowed to leave the base, obviously we're not going to see much going on outside. So I wasn't like bothered by that at all. I thought that actually made a lot of sense. But other people didn't feel that way, and that's fine. But like for me, it didn't bother me. I thought the unit was pretty interesting. I thought like the trials and the different things for the most part was interesting. There was one kind of like op that they went on that I felt didn't really lead anywhere, and I kind of felt like it was just a moment to create some like tension between the FMC and the MMC Cross and what is her name again? Oh, Ren and Cross. Like, it felt like it was just about an excuse to make like tension between the two of them. But other than that, most of it was pretty interesting. Now, in terms of Ren, she was kind of hard to like, I'm gonna be honest. Like, most of the other characters were fine. I liked most of the other characters were, you know, funny or entertaining or whatever, but like Ren, the main character, she was pretty annoying. Now, again, the thing that made her annoying was something that I believe we were not supposed to like. She is someone that is very reckless, and she herself mentions that like that is an issue that she has. For me, if you watch my last blog, you'll see that I talk a lot about this. It did bother me a lot. But I also said the reason why I didn't like give up on the book or DNF is because even though she's very reckless, every time she does something reckless, there's always consequences. If there were no consequences, I don't know what's wrong there. If there was no consequences for her actions, and if people were like not upset with her, then I would probably not be very happy about that, because I would assume that the writer wanted her to be reckless and we were supposed to be okay with it. But she's constantly getting into trouble. She's constantly facing harsh consequences for her actions, and people are constantly like chewing her out and being like, stop being so entitled, stop being so reckless, you're going to get you or someone around you unalived. So like people are constantly reprimanding her, and she does feel pretty guilty, and she does try to rein in her impulses. But I guess for me, I would have liked to see a little more character growth in this first book in regards to Ren. She was trying, though. You could see throughout the book she did feel bad anytime she made a mistake, and she knew that this was like a big issue, a big flaw that she had that she needs to get over, and she was trying really hard to get over that flaw. There just wasn't like a ton of like, it felt like it was mostly like her doing stupid things, then feeling bad when she has to face the consequences or when other people face the consequences, and then her saying like, okay, I'm going to try and like rein it in, and then she does something stupid again, and then it's like repeated over and over again. I'm assuming though in book 2, that's when, because book 1 kind of ended on a bang. Like, I do say the ending was pretty good, and it did set things up pretty well for book 2. There were a few reveals, there's some things that happened. I mean, things I wouldn't say were like a huge shock or so. Well, there was one that was kind of like a little twist at the end. But for the most part, I kind of knew it was going to go in this direction. But I'm still very interested to see what Danny Francis is going to do for book 2. I do think there's probably going to be a fair amount of progress with Ren's character, and I think book 1 was really about her finding out more about the Prime military and like getting more involved in the resistance movement, because at the beginning of the book she's only done a few little things, really not important things with the resistance movement, so she's kind of like barely a part of it, but then getting caught and then like being like an undercover agent type thing. Well, first to be almost like an undercover agent because she has to hide her abilities obviously when she's competing for Silver Elite. It kind of gets her further into the military and further into the uprising, which is what the sort of resistant mod group is called. So I think the next book we're going to see her having like a lot more agency and her making a lot more growth and progress in her journey to like, you know, be less reckless and be a better person. It was just really frustrating to see her make like the same mistake over and over again. But again, in real life, I guess people don't just make one mistake and then do a 180. Like, sometimes people have to make the same mistake over and over and over and over again. And then there's some people that never even learn and just stay the same. So I guess it's, you know, realistic that she wouldn't completely change and be like a way better person by the end. And obviously I'm assuming that this is probably going to be like a trilogy or maybe a 5-book series, because that seems to be a thing now, doesn't it? That like everyone's doing like 5-book series now. So maybe it's going to be a 5-book series, but like either way, I know it's going to be a series, and I'm sure that we're going to, well, I know that like there's no way this is going to be wrapped up in 2 books, or I'd be shocked if it was. So I'm assuming it's at least a trilogy, if not more. So we will be able, I know I'm pretty confident that we're going to see progress in book 2 and book 3 with Ren's character, especially since she finds out something pretty important at the end of the book. I won't say what it is, but it's something that I think is going to really cause her to reflect on who she is, to reflect on everything she knows, and I think it will help her make certain decisions in who she wants to be going forward. So I am interested for book 2 to see where this book is going to go, where the series is going to go. So yeah, as I said, 3.5, it was good, not amazing. Hopefully book 2 will be a 4-star read. So yeah, that's for Silver Elites. So just to go over the books I bought yesterday, I bought these 3 books. All 3 of them are new releases. Let me get into them. 2 of them I was able to get on sale, 30% off. Plus I have a Plum Rewards card, so that's like an extra 10%. So I was able to save some money. So the first book, I've seen some people talk about this. It's One Golden Summer. It's a new release, I believe. I don't know much about it. Let me just read the back. I know like a lot of people are like excited about it. Oh, and one thing that did make me happy is this is a Canadian author. They have, as you saw in my video, a whole section with different Canadian books. And so it does make me feel happy to support a fellow Canadian. So I never anticipated Charlie Florrick. Good things happen at the lake. That's what Alice's grandmother says, and it's true. Alice spent just one summer there at the cottage of Nan when she was 17. It's where she took that photo, the one of 3 grinning teenagers in a yellow speedboat, the image that changed her life. Now Alice lives behind a lens. As a photographer, she's more comfortable on the sidelines, letting other people shine. Lately, though, she's been itching for something more, and when Nan falls and breaks her hip, Alice comes up with a plan for them both. Another summer in that magical place, Barry's Bay. But as soon as they settle in, their peace is disturbed by a roar of a familiar yellow boat and the man driving it. Charlie Florrick was 19 when Alice took his photo from afar. Now he's all grown up, a shameless flirt who manages to make Nan laugh, and Alice longed to be 17 again, when life was simpler, when taking pictures was just for fun. Sun-slanted days and warm nights out on the lake with Charlie are a balm for Alice's soul, but when she looks up and sees his piercing green gaze directly on her, she begins to worry for her heart. Because Alice sees people, that's why she is good at what she does. But she's never met someone who looks and sees her right back. So that sounds pretty interesting. I don't think I've really read anything quite like this. So I am very interested to see what this is like. I know there's a lot of kind of buzz around it right now. So, and I got it on sale, so I'm happy about that. Now, this is one that I actually wasn't planning to buy for a while, because I know Jessica Hastings is the writer of the Magnolia Park series, and some people who have been talking about this said that some of the characters from that book make appearances. I don't think big appearances, but like pop up here or there throughout this book. So I was worried that I would have to read the Magnolia Parks series first before I read this, but then I did some research and said that it's just a standalone and that it's not actually, like, I guess it takes place in the same universe as Magnolia Parks, but it's not directly connected to what's happening. So I can read this without, I won't be lost if I read this, and it won't spoil anything, I guess, for Magnolia Parks. And I've decided, well, since this is a standalone and I don't want to have to like read a whole series first and then get to this, I might as well just read this one first, and then if I like it, then, you know, I'll continue and potentially read Magnolia Parks, I guess. So the Condition of Will, let me just read the inside. I'm not really good at like just like explaining books, like summarizing them, so let me just read this. London-based Georgia Carter, professional lie detector and body language savant, has long been estranged from her infuriating, close-minded, wealthy South Carolina family. After falling out years ago, the chasm runs deep between the black sheep, Georgia, and her gay, alcoholic brother and their parents and elder siblings. But when their father dies suddenly, Georgia returns to the state for the funeral, where she comes face-to-face with Sam Penny, her brother's AA sponsor. Amid the tension, dramas, and revelations of the family reunion, Georgia and Sam are instantly drawn to each other. However, Georgia's brother also harbors feelings for Sam, and the last thing Georgia wants to do is hurt the only family she has ever really had. When their father's will reveals a surprising bequest to a mysterious stranger, Georgia's ability to read people becomes crucial in unraveling her father's hidden past. The delicate balance within the family teeters and secrets. Both old and new threaten to push them beyond the breaking point. There are only so many cracks the damaged family can take before it shatters. So this sounds pretty interesting. There's family drama, romance, all type of stuff. The cover is quite interesting. So I think this should be good. I'm not really sure what to expect. This will be my first Jesta Hastings book, so I'm interested to see what her writing style is like. A lot of people have positive things to say about Magnolia Parks, though I have heard some mixed reviews, but I feel like most of what I've heard was positive. So I am interested and excited to read this. I know a lot of people are like kind of going nuts over it right now, so I'll see if it's worth the hype. Now this last one, the reason why I bought this one is, you know, I'm reading Beach Reads, which is my first Emily Henry book. I'm almost finished it and I really, really loved it. So I want to basically read everything that Emily Henry has written. Now, I know there's other books like Funny People. I can't remember the names of the others, but like I know there's other books, but I know that Great Big Beautiful Life is her newest release. So I figured, you know what, let me just buy the newest one. I'll read this one first and then I'll get to like the rest of her books, like Funny People and the rest. Though I do know that some people are saying that this one is supposed to be fairly different from the rest of her books. I don't know if that's like a good thing or a bad thing, but I am interested. I liked Beach Reads, and hopefully I will also love Great Big Beautiful Life. She always has these like really beautiful and like cheery looking cover pages, and obviously really kind of like nice and sweet titles. But honestly, after reading Beach Reads, I know that that's pretty deceptive, and there's probably going to be at least some heavy things mentioned in this. But then again, if this is supposed to be different from her other stuff, I guess maybe I shouldn't compare this too much to Beach Reads, because maybe it's like completely different. But I'm so excited to see what it's like. It says that it's a Reese book club pick. It was also on sale for 30% off. They had like a whole section. Well, I think I filmed it, a whole section of her books with this one at the very top, obviously, of like this big pile because it's her newest book. So yeah, I'm excited. I just need to like finish up the last of Beach Reads, and then I can like get to this one and see if it's as good and as, you know, heartfelt as Beach Reads. But yeah, so that is the 3 books that I bought yesterday. I don't think I'm probably going to buy any more books for a little while. I'm saying that today, and then watch like next week I buy like 2 or 3 more. But yeah, my plan is to not buy any more books for a little while, because I already bought like Silver Lead and these other ones. But these are all like new releases that everyone is like really talking about, and it's made me curious, like, because like, you know, on Book Talk, some books are worth the hype, and then some books are not worth the hype at all. There have been some times where I have been extremely let down, extremely disappointed by Book Talk recommendations, and then there are other times where I was like so glad I listened to Book Talk. So I guess it would just depend. I have faith though that after reading Beach Reads, that anything that Emily Henry writes is going to be good. So I have pretty big expectations for Great Big Beautiful Life. In terms of the other 2 books, I've never read anything by those 2 authors, so I feel like that's kind of like a theme for me this year, is I keep reading authors I've never read before. Like I've read, again, Emily Henry for the first time, Brandon Sanderson for the first time. I have an Ali Hazelwood book, Bride, that I'm going to be reading, and then if I like it, I guess I'll get into the rest of her books. Then there's like other authors that, like popular authors, that I bought like books from them, or that I plan to buy books from them. So like, yeah, I'm getting into like a lot of new new books, new authors, and seeing like if they live up to the hype. So far they have. Like, I loved Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson and Beast Reads by Emily Henry. So hopefully Ali Hazelworth Bride will be good, and hopefully these other two authors, Stissa Hastings and what's the other person? Need to take the sticker off. Carly Fortune. Hopefully they will not disappoint me. But yeah, that's basically that's my little book haul there. I am going to be going out a little bit later to the library because I have my creative writing club meeting tonight, and I'm pretty excited because it's going to be around characters and like the importance, I think, of like main characters. If I'm remembering that correctly. I remember last month they told us what the theme was, and I was like really excited. So I am pretty enthusiastic for tonight. So see you later. So I just got back from my creative writing club, and I wanted to read some of the prompts we did. So for this month, it was basically about fictional characters and like what makes a fictional character. So we had to kind of like create one, or well, we could either create a fictional character or talk about one that already exists. I decided to talk about the fictional character from my work in progress. So there are a bunch of prompts. The first prompt was, what does your character want? So for mine, I have that she wants to make enough money to pay for her father's treatments. She also wants to stop working for the royal family because she's a servant, and she wants to be able to, you know, rise above being a servant and a peasant and be able to like make a living for herself on her own, not having to work for anybody else. So maybe becoming like a merchant or something that would, you know, be able to provide her a life of freedom, basically. So then the next prompt, part 2, is write a scene about what they want. So kind of like the origin story for the character. I'm not going to go too much into that because I don't want to give too much away from my story. Then there were stakes. So like, what will happen if their goal is not reached? So one of the goals for my character, her father is very sick and she needs to basically raise money to pay for his medications. As I mentioned, she's a servant, a peasant, so she is not able to afford a lot of medications. The medicines that she would need would be pretty expensive, and she, on the salary that she makes, would not be able to afford them. There's also a war happening at this time, which makes it even harder for her to get certain products because some of the trade routes have been shut down. Then we have what are they afraid of, and obviously not be able to, you know, take care of her father, not having the opportunity to live up to her potential because she's a pretty smart and, you know, capable woman, but at the same time, you know, she has a lot of disadvantages being born into a lower social status, and she's afraid that her intelligence and her wit isn't going to be enough to get her out of poverty because this is a very classist society that she lives in. And what do they value? I put like loyalty, intelligence, kindness, resourcefulness. Those are some qualities that she has, and she also likes those qualities in other people, especially, well, intelligence because she's an intelligent person, and kindness because she's around a fair amount of people who are not very kind. The people that she works for, the royal family, most of them are not very kind people. A lot of the nobles in her kingdom are pretty classist, pretty cruel. So obviously kindness is something that she would value since she doesn't get to see it all the time. And then like, what are the elements putting pressure on them? So basically one of the elements being, again, being born into peasantry and not being able to have certain opportunities in her life that makes her life much harder. And then she also has a sort of secret ability that she has had to keep secret for most of her life. I'm not going to go into too much detail about why she has to keep that secret, maybe at a later date. And then we had to do strengths and shortcomings. So again, strengths would be intelligent. I would say she's brave, willing to go outside her comfort zone. She thinks outside of the box. She has a unique power, and she's good at reading people. I would say some of her weaknesses, she's a bit of a thrill seeker. She gets bored easily, so she often likes to do things to kind of, you know, seek just thrills. So she's a little bit reckless at times. Also because of how intelligent she is, she's a lot smarter than most of the people around her, so she always likes to challenge herself, which sometimes can be really good, to challenge herself and to go beyond her limits. But then sometimes she also does take unnecessary risks, so sometimes those risks pay off and then sometimes they don't. So she has to like find that balance, basically. And then she could be closed off because obviously having to hide, having this big secret. She's had the secret since she was a child, and you know, when you have a secret like that, it's hard for you to get too close to people because you're always going to feel like no one truly knows you. And there's a good reason for why she keeps the secret, but at the same time it is of course a burden, and there's a part of her that doesn't want to have to keep it a secret anymore. Well, actually in the story there is a circumstance where she has to start working for a particular person, and she has to kind of reveal the secret. So there are some people who now know, and it's both good and bad. It's both like the person she's working for, this other side job outside of being a servant, is for someone that's pretty dangerous. So like that isn't great, and it's not great that this person knows their secrets and that people who work for them are going to find out this secret as well. That's dangerous for her. But at the same time, there's a part of her that kind of, even in this situation, is happy that someone knows, that she doesn't have to like lie all the time. So it's a very kind of unique situation that she's going to find herself in this in my story. So I almost forgot, there's actually some more. Oh yeah, so it's basically status so status, I already kind of said like she's a peasant, so she's pretty low in status. And then you have to kind of want us to talk about what are some things, if they're like low in status, what's kind of like, you know, what's something that could kind of like help them a little bit. And obviously her being intelligent, having this sort of unique power, kind of like things that could potentially equalize and help her get to a higher status in life. Of course, she doesn't know if she will or not, but like that's part of the journey for her. And then we were supposed to talk about secrets, and I already basically just talked about her secret already. So that's basically what we had to do. I knew I was going to enjoy this because like obviously talking about characters and writing and all of that when I'm writing a novel is like really cool and interesting. Sorry about that. I kind of lost my train of thought just now. I think, oh yeah, I was really blown away by some of the stories that people came up with. There's one in particular that was really unique. When she first started talking about it, I was like, that's kind of interesting. But then when she went into detail, I was like, my mouth was like hanging open. I was shocked about how good it was and how unique it was. Like, I feel like there's a lot of like similarities in stories that are published today, and this would be something that would be very, very different from anything out there. I think it would do really well. I'm not going to say what it is because I don't know if like what she's planning to do with it, but I hope she publishes it because it was really good. There were a few others that were like really good as well, so it's like, oh man, there's a lot of good writers here, so I'm like glad that I'm attending these sessions. But yeah, it was really great. I was still kind of shy, so I didn't like share my ideas yet, but I think like next time, you know, I've gone to a few sessions. I think next time I share some of my work. But yeah, that's basically what the night was like. I had a great time. Next month is supposed to be like a writer's treasure hunt, so I'm really excited to see what that's going to be like. a farmer's market going on, so I'm gonna check that out right now and see if there's anything cool. Hi, it's Saturday afternoon. I'm about 50% through Shoot of Sparrow, and I'm really struggling with this. The last update I gave, I think I said that she, Odessa, was leaving her kingdom and going to another kingdom, and she basically has been assigned this mission that she needs to complete in this other kingdom. And that sounded like really exciting. I was like, okay, so she's kind of like going over undercover. I was really excited. I thought as soon as she gets here, things are going to start really heating up. Like they set everything up for, you know, a really exciting rest of the story. But she's kind of like in this encampment in the middle of nowhere, and like nothing's really happening. Like she's training, which is important because she doesn't have any sort of like combat skills, so it is important like for her to train. And I do think it's interesting, as I said before, that she is not like this kind of like badass like warrior princess or like a thief or like what you normally see in romantasy stories. She's someone with like no combat skills, and she's having to learn from scratch, which is interesting. But right now it's kind of just the same thing day in and day out. She wakes up early in the morning, she trains, she sucks at it, she tries to find out information for her mission, she fails, and it's kind of like rinse and repeat over and over. Sometimes like these like monster creature things will show up, but like nothing is, even with that, like that's, nothing's really happening with that. I don't know, it's kind of just dragging. Like it's kind of, now that we're at the midway point, it's kind of like dragging. She has escaped the encampment, so she is kind of like going to another town now. No one really knows that she's left besides her maid. So hopefully things are going to start to really pick up now, because she's kind of like determined that she's going to find out some information, because no one's like really telling her anything. They're treating, because she, you know, she's an outsider. She's not from this kingdom, even though she technically is sort of a part of it now. She's still an outsider, and no one wants to give her information. But like, you know, it's just kind of dragging on, and I'm honestly, it's feeling kind of boring. And the last few times I picked it up, I was kind of like, oh, I have to go back to reading this. But I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that it's going to start to pick up again, because the beginning was not too bad, but the middle is just kind of like, So I'm hoping that like now it's going to start picking up now that they've done like some training, and she just, because like they do have to show, I understand that we have to show her training, we do have to show like her struggles in completing the mission, and that like people don't trust her and stuff. But like I felt like that kind of went on for like a little bit too long. Like that could have been a few chapters less. But yeah, so we're at an interesting part though, so hopefully things are going to start picking up. reading just ended. I think now I'm just gonna take a little break and read some more Shield of Sparrows, and then I'm gonna get to studying again. I just got to a part where the male love interest says the main character Odessa's name for the first time. Usually he says like her last name, Cross, or other like nicknames. He said her name for the first time, and I'm like, okay, you know what, I understand why people go nuts for that now. Usually I never really cared, but this was actually like a nice scene. The last, like, I know my last update, I was like struggling, but the last few chapters haven't been bad. So like it's picked up, and I'm happy for that. So it is many weeks later since my last update. Part of the reason is because life has just been very hectic and busy, so I wasn't able to devote a ton of time to reading. But it's also because this story has been, it's a big book, but it's also, it has its like moments where the story was kind of a drag, and times where I honestly just didn't want to pick the story up. But I will say at the 70% mark, there's kind of like a mystery. Well, there's like a mystery that's happening throughout the entire book about like finding the capital of this kingdom, Alicera, I think that's how it's pronounced. But then a second mystery is kind of revealed kind of around the 70% mark, and that ends up being pretty interesting. And I'm going to be honest, like the last few chapters, so I guess like the last 10 to 15% of the book was pretty incredible, and I will say it made up for some of the areas of the book that kind of lagged. In terms of the main character Odessa, I was willing to give her a chance at the beginning. I thought she might be an interesting character because she's different from a lot of the FMCs in romantasy books, which I appreciate. But honestly, I just didn't like her that much. I didn't really like being in her mind. That was another reason why I think it took me so long to read this. I don't particularly love her, and obviously, you know, even if everything else in the story is great, if you have to be in the mind of someone that you don't particularly love, that could be hard. I just found her, I don't know, annoying quite often. She was snarky, but in like a self-deprecating way, and she just seemed kind of useless at times. But she did start to like put pieces together at the end of the story, so she did end up kind of like having a purpose, and she was useful, I would say. And you know, she did have a decent character development by the end, but it was slow progress. In terms of the romance, it was enemies to lovers, and I do love enemies to lovers, but I also felt that this was insta love. And for me, and this might be just a personal thing, I think enemies to lovers needs to be a slow burn. It doesn't need to be the slowest of slow burns. I don't need them to be like only holding hands by the end of the book, like, and like only being intimate by like book 2 or 3 or something. Like, things can happen, but like it felt like they were into each other like immediately, and like they were flirting with each other immediately. So I didn't really like that. I wasn't super invested in the romance. It wasn't horrible, don't get me wrong, it wasn't like a horrible romance, but it just wasn't something I was super into. In terms of like the monsters and the monster hunting in this story, I did really like that. I know someone said that if you're into The Witcher, that this would be a good book to read, and I agree with that. The monster hunting aspects and the thing with like the crux and all of that was very interesting. And the ending, my god, of course I'm not going to spoil anything, but this ending made me excited for book 2. Like, when I was halfway through this book, I wasn't sure if I'm going to be honest right now, I wasn't sure if I was going to continue with this series, because I'm like, I'm not sure if this is for me. But that ending, honestly, that ending saved everything. It made me super invested now. I think book 2 is going to be amazing. Like, this book, I would give it a 3 stars. Honestly, before that, I was probably going to give it a 2.5. but that ending, the last 70%, but specifically the last 10%, oh my god, I am actually so excited for book 2. I think book 2 is going to be at least a 4-star if they do it, if then Devney does it right. I have high expectations for book 2, which is insane because halfway through this, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to continue with this. I don't know. This might be a 2-star read. But now I'm like, no, I'm invested for book 2. I cannot wait. So yeah, 3 stars. Excited for book 2. That is basically the end of my Sheer Despair journey. So if I were you, if you like The Witcher, if you're fine with insta love, and if you like enemies to lovers, and you want a story that's a little bit different from a lot of romanticies, this is definitely the book for you. I would just say you have to get through the middle. The middle is a bit of a slog, but even if you're having a hard time, press through. There were times where I thought about DNFing this. I'm so glad I didn't, because that ending made up for everything. It was such a good ending, and honestly, this is a unique story. I don't know, I feel like it could have been shorter. I think that's a big issue. It could have been shorter. Some chapters were, specifically in the middle, were not necessary, but that ending made up for everything. So I am excited for book 2. So yeah, that's the end of this vlog. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope let me know if you've read this book, what was your thoughts, and if you are thinking about it, give it a try for the ending alone, because I think this series is actually going to be good. So that's it. Have a great rest of your day, everyone, and see you in my next vlog.